Picture this moment with absolute clarity. Someone attacks you with words designed to wound. They question your competence in front of colleagues. They mock your choices. They push every button they know will trigger you. And in that precise moment, while your blood pressure rises and your heart pounds with the urge to strike back, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, you do something completely unexpected. You stay cold, not frozen, not afraid. Cold, like ice that doesn't melt under heat. And in that single moment of controlled silence, you flip the entire power dynamic. Because here is the truth that most people spend their entire lives never understanding. The person who needs to react has already lost. The person who can choose not to has already won. This is not about being weak. This is not about letting people walk over you. This is about understanding an ancient Stoic principle that separates those who merely survive conflicts from those who dominate them without ever raising their voice. The question is not whether you are strong enough to fight back. The question is whether you are cold enough to keep the power when everyone around you is losing theirs. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you replayed a heated conversation in your mind, cringing at what you said in anger? How many times have you sent that message at 2 in the morning, the one you wish you could take back the moment you hit send? How many times have you escalated a small conflict into a relationship-ending war because you absolutely needed to have the last word? Think about that moment last week when your boss criticized your work in front of the team. You felt the heat rising to your face. Your jaw clenched. And you responded with that sharp comment that felt so satisfying for exactly 3 seconds. Then came the hours of regret, the damaged relationship, the reputation slightly tarnished, or maybe it was your partner who said something dismissive about your dreams, and you exploded. You listed every time they disappointed you. You went for the throat. And now there is this distance between you that was not there before. This wall you built with words you cannot take back. Here is what nobody tells you about these moments. The problem is not that you got angry. Anger is human. The problem is that you gave your power away the moment you let that anger control your response. You handed control of your emotional state to someone else. You let them decide how you feel and how you act. And in that exchange, you lost. Not because they were right, not because you were wrong, but because you reacted instead of responded. You became predictable, controllable, weak. Before we go deeper into this principle that can fundamentally change how you navigate every conflict in your life, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not because I need another number on a screen, but because if you are someone who genuinely wants to develop unshakable inner strength, who wants to be the person others cannot manipulate or control, who wants to master yourself before trying to master anything else, then this is exactly where you need to be. Every week, we break down ancient Stoic wisdom and translate it into practical tools you can use immediately in modern life, at work, in relationships. In that moment when everything inside you screams to react. This is not philosophy for academics. This is mental armor for people living in the real world. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next video, because we are building something here. A community of people who choose strength over reaction, wisdom over impulse, power over pride. So right now your brain is probably generating counter-arguments, because everything in our modern culture tells us that not responding is weakness, that letting something slide means you are a doormat, that real strength looks like dominance, like winning the argument, like making sure everyone knows you will not be disrespected. We have been conditioned to believe that power is loud, that it requires immediate action, that silence equals surrender. But what if everything you have been taught about power is completely backwards? What if the moments you feel most compelled to react are precisely the moments when reacting guarantees you lose? Think about it this way. When someone provokes you and you react emotionally, what have they just proven? They have proven they can control you. With just words, they made you angry. They made you defensive. They made you do exactly what they wanted. You became their puppet, and they were pulling the strings. Now imagine the opposite. Someone launches their best attack. They use the words they know will hurt. They try every manipulation tactic in their arsenal, and you remain completely unmoved, not pretending, not suppressing. Actually unmoved because you have trained yourself to stay cold. What have you just proven? That they have no power over you. That your emotional state is not for sale. That you are not a reactive animal that can be controlled with the right stimulus. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world during his time as Roman emperor, wrote something in his private journals that cuts right to the heart of this principle. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that for a moment. The emperor of Rome, commanding legions, controlling territories, wielding absolute political power, and his definition of real strength had nothing to do with any of that. Real strength was internal. It was the power over his own reactions, his own mind, his own emotional state. Marcus faced conspiracies, betrayals, wars, plagues, and personal tragedies that would break most people. And his response was not to lash out, not to use his power to destroy everyone who wronged him, but to cultivate an inner fortress that external chaos could not penetrate. He understood something that seems almost impossible to believe until you experience it yourself. The person who controls their inner world has more real power than the person who controls armies, but cannot control their own anger. Let me paint you two different scenarios, and you tell me who has the power. Scenario 1. Your colleague takes credit for your idea in the meeting. You feel the anger rising. You immediately interrupt. You call them out. You make it confrontational. The room gets tense. Your boss looks uncomfortable. Now everyone remembers the conflict, not the idea. You have been labeled as difficult, as unable to work on a team. You were right, but you lost. Scenario 2. Same situation. Your colleague takes credit for your idea. You notice it. You feel that initial spike of anger, but you stay cold. You do not react. You let them talk. Later, in a calm moment, you have a private conversation with your boss. No emotion, just facts. Just a simple clarification about the project's development. Your boss now sees two things. They see who really did the work, and they see who has emotional maturity. You maintained your power. You protected your reputation. You solved the problem without becoming the problem. Can you see the difference? In the first scenario, you let your need to react immediately control you. In the second scenario, you kept the power by choosing when and how to respond. Now let me explain the mechanism here, because understanding why this works is crucial to actually implementing it. When you react emotionally to provocation, you are completing a circuit. Someone pushes your button, you respond with emotion, they get confirmation that they can affect you, and the pattern is reinforced. You have just trained them that this tactic works on you. But when you stay cold, when you do not react, you break the circuit. The provocation happens, but there is no emotional payoff, no reaction, no satisfaction. And here is what happens next that most people do not anticipate. The person who tried to provoke you becomes unsettled, because humans are wired to expect reactions. When we poke something, we expect it to react. When it does not, when it just stares back at us unmoved, we experience cognitive dissonance. We start questioning ourselves. Did it not work? Are they stronger than I thought? Your silence, your coldness, your refusal to play the game, it becomes more powerful than any counterattack could be. Because counterattacks are expected. But opting out entirely, that is mastery. That is power. Let me give you some examples of people who have mastered this principle. There is a story about Abraham Lincoln that perfectly illustrates Stoic coldness. When he was president, one of his cabinet members, Edwin Stanton, openly insulted him, calling him a fool. People expected Lincoln to fire him immediately, but Lincoln did not react. He kept Stanton in his position because Stanton was competent, and Lincoln cared more about winning the war than about his wounded pride. Years later, after Lincoln's assassination, it was Stanton who said through tears, "Now he belongs to the ages." The man who once called him a fool became one of his greatest admirers, because Lincoln's refusal to react to the insult demonstrated a strength that eventually earned even his critics' respect. So let us get into the practical application. How do you actually develop this coldness? How do you stay unreactive in the moment when everything inside you is screaming to fight back? First, you need to understand your personal triggers. What are the specific things that make you lose control? Is it when someone questions your competence? Is it when someone dismisses your feelings? You need to identify these patterns in yourself, because you cannot defend against an attack you do not see coming. Keep a journal for 1 week. Every time you feel that surge of reactive anger, write down exactly what triggered it. What was said? Who said it? What need of yours felt threatened? By the end of the week, you will see patterns. You will have a map of your vulnerabilities, and awareness is the first step to control. Second, implement what I call the cold pause. This is a technique I want you to practice starting today. When you feel triggered, when you feel that urge to react immediately, you create a deliberate pause. You can do this physically by taking a slow breath. You can do it mentally by counting to 5. You can do it verbally by saying something like, "Let me think about that for a moment." The specific method does not matter. What matters is creating space between stimulus and response, because in that space, in that pause, you regain your power. You shift from reactive to responsive. You give your rational brain time to catch up to your emotional brain. And in that moment, you can choose. Do I respond now or later? Do I respond at all? Is this worth my energy? What response actually serves my interests? These are questions you cannot ask when you are in reactive mode. But in cold mode, with that pause, you can ask them. Third, practice what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, which means the premeditation of evils. This is the practice of visualizing difficult situations before they happen. Before that difficult conversation with your boss, you visualize how it might go. You imagine them saying the thing that would normally trigger you. And you practice in your mind staying cold. You rehearse your response. You see yourself maintaining control. This is not pessimism. This is preparation. Athletes do this constantly. They visualize the game before they play it. When you have already experienced staying cold in your mind 50 times, it becomes much easier to actually do it when the moment arrives. Fourth, reframe what cold means. Because there is a common misconception that staying cold means suppressing your emotions, becoming some kind of emotionless robot. That is not what this is. Stoic coldness is not about not feeling. It is about not being controlled by what you feel. You can feel the anger. You can acknowledge it. You can say to yourself, "I notice I am feeling angry right now," but you do not have to act on it. Think of it like this. You are not trying to eliminate the waves. You are learning to surf them. The emotions will come. That is guaranteed. But whether they knock you over or whether you ride them with skill and control, that is your choice. And here is what happens when you start practicing this consistently. The emotions themselves start to have less power, because you have broken the connection between feeling and action. Fifth, you need to understand the difference between being cold and being avoidant. Staying cold does not mean never addressing problems. It means choosing when and how you address those problems from a position of strength rather than reactive weakness. Let me give you a framework for this. When something happens that bothers you, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Is this actually important, or am I just being reactive? 2. Is addressing this right now going to improve the situation or make it worse? 3. What outcome do I actually want, and what action serves that outcome? If something genuinely needs to be addressed, you address it. But you do it strategically. You wait until you are calm. You plan what you are going to say. You choose the right time and place. This is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is immediate, emotional, and usually counterproductive. Response is deliberate, strategic, and effective. Let me tell you what your life starts to look like when you master this principle. When you can stay cold, when you have genuine control over your reactions, people notice. They start treating you differently. They become more careful with their words around you, not because you are intimidating or aggressive, but because they recognize that you cannot be manipulated. You gain a reputation for being level-headed, for being someone who does not get rattled, for being the person others turn to in crisis because you are the one who stays calm. This reputation becomes one of your most valuable assets. In professional settings, it leads to leadership opportunities, because organizations do not promote people who fly off the handle. They promote people who can handle pressure without breaking G. In personal relationships, it leads to deeper trust, because the people in your life know that you are not going to say something devastating in the heat of the moment that you do not mean. Your relationships actually get more authentic, not less. Because when you are not constantly reactive, when you have eliminated those explosive arguments that damage connection, you create space for real vulnerability, for real intimacy, for real trust. Now let us talk about the daily practice. Because knowing these principles intellectually is worthless if you do not implement them practically. Here is what I want you to do starting tomorrow morning. First thing when you wake up, before you check your phone, spend 5 minutes visualizing your day. Think about the situations you might face. Think about the people who might trigger you, and visualize yourself staying cold. See yourself in that meeting staying calm when your idea gets dismissed. This 5-minute practice sets your intention for the day. It primes your brain to respond instead of react. Then throughout the day, every single time you successfully stay cold in a moment where you would normally react, acknowledge it. This recognition strengthens the behavior, and at the end of each day, do a brief review. Think about your reactions throughout the day. Where did you stay cold successfully? Where did you react when you wish you had not? This daily practice is how you transform from reactive to responsive. The first few weeks are hard. You will slip up. That is normal. That is part of the process. Every day you practice, you get a little bit stronger, a little bit more in control. Let me paint you a picture of who you become when you master this principle. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. Someone at work tries to provoke you in a meeting. They question your competence, and you feel the anger. You notice it, but you do not react. You stay perfectly calm. You address their concern with cool logic. The room notices. They see someone tried to rattle you and failed. Your reputation grows. Imagine yourself in a relationship conflict. Your partner says something hurtful, and instead of immediately attacking back, you pause. You take a breath. You recognize they are speaking from their own pain, and you respond with clarity or compassion. You refuse to make it worse. You have not said anything you will regret. This is who you can become. Someone who cannot be manipulated. Someone who maintains power in any situation. Someone who chooses their responses instead of being controlled by their reactions. Someone who is genuinely free because their emotional state does not depend on what other people say or do. The Stoics had a concept they called Amor, Fati, which means love of fate. It means accepting and even embracing everything that happens because it is all part of your journey. When you can stay cold in the face of provocation, when you can maintain your power regardless of circumstances, you are embodying this principle. You are saying, whatever you throw at me, I can handle it without losing myself. And that is the ultimate form of strength, not the strength to dominate others, the strength to remain yourself regardless of what others do. Not the strength to never feel challenged. The strength to face challenges without breaking. This is the power the Stoics discovered 2,000 years ago, and it is just as relevant today. So here is the question you need to answer for yourself. Are you going to continue being reactive, predictable, and controllable? Or are you going to develop the skill that makes you genuinely powerful? Are you going to keep giving your emotional state away to anyone who knows which buttons to push? Or are you going to claim ownership over your inner world? This is the decision that determines the quality of your entire life. Because your life is not determined by what happens to you. Your life is determined by how you respond to what happens to you. When you stay cold, when you maintain control, when you choose your responses deliberately, you become the author of your own experience. You take the power back. If this video helped you see power in a completely different way, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the practical Stoic wisdom we share every single week. And here is what I want you to do in the comments. Tell me about one situation this week where you are going to practice staying cold. Just one. Write it down. Make that commitment public. Because when you state your intention, you are far more likely to follow through. I read every comment. and I want to see your commitment to becoming someone who keeps the power. Let's build this practice together.